Hi, I'm Mary Keller Ditta, and my goal is to look at Scripture to find out what God's will is for us. Today I'm going to look at Zephaniah chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. And it says here, I will also leave in the midst of you an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. So this tells us that God has a remnant of Israel. A remnant is kind of like, what does that word remnant mean? Those who are left. If you have a remnant of cloth, it's a small piece of the bigger whole. It's a remnant. People will go into a clothing store and buy a remnant. So this remnant of Israel, there's lots of discussion about who or when. There's the remnant of Israel, but the Lord is pretty clear about who makes up the remnant. And he says, this remnant I will leave in the midst of you an afflicted and poor people, the remnant of Israel. So within the bigger whole, there's a group who's afflicted and poor. There's something else about them. The remnant of Israel. If we say they are afflicted, he also says they shall lie down and none shall make them afraid. He says they are poor, and yet he says they shall feed. So the reason they shall feed and lie down and none shall make them afraid is because they trust in the name of the Lord. So the remnant of Israel are those who trust in him. They are poor in the eyes of the world, but they feed. They have what they need. They are supplied. They are afflicted in the eyes of the world, and yet they rest and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Why? Because they trust in the Lord. Ask yourself, am I a remnant of Israel? Am I this small piece, part of this small piece of cloth that's left over, or that's apart? So, what would be the characteristics? Well, he says they shall not do iniquity. They shall not speak lies. Neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. So, if you ask yourself, do I do iniquity? Do I do evil? Do I do iniquity? I don't does not sit well with a lot of people, but do I watch and listen to iniquity? You gotta be careful. For what goes in is seeds planted, and you don't want iniquity planted in your heart. It says that the remnant of Israel does not speak lies, nor is a deceitful tongue in their mouth. They do not speak lies. They do not deceive. Well, you may think, well, I always tell the truth. I don't care how it affects people. You know, you don't, we have to not intentionally speak lies. The attention to deceive, neither is deceitful, tongue found in their mouth. The idea that you want people to think one thing even though it's not true. People who are sarcastic have a tendency, or who joke around, think that it's all innocent. Well, is it? What comes out of our mouth is very important. And so we don't want to plant deception in our heart. When people might say, I'm just kidding. Oh, it was just a joke. Oh, well, that's just how he is. He doesn't really mean that. Deceit is deceitful. If you want to be the remnant of Israel, one who trusts in the name of the Lord, one who feeds and lies down and is not afraid, so then you have to not do iniquity. You have to not do wrong. You have to not speak lies, and you have to not be deceitful. You need to guard your heart and your mind so that you lead not your body into sin. I always think it's interesting that people sometimes say, well, if something hurts someone, well, that's too bad, it's the truth. Well, you don't always, it's not, when we say you have to not speak lies, doesn't mean you have to say anything. You know, there's that adage, if you can't say something good, say nothing at all. Is that deceitful? No. It's not deceitful. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to speak. It says speak lies or have a deceitful tongue. I'm sure Jesus wrestled with that. I'm sure he would have liked to have said a lot more than he did. But he was always very careful, because remember, many times in scriptures it says that those who were against him tried to trick him into saying something that they could then accuse him of. So do you want to be of the remnant of Israel? God's chosen people? What's the qualification? To trust in him, to speak no lies, to not have a deceitful tongue, to not do iniquity. Being like that might make me poor and afflicted, and yet he says, You are rich, you will feed, and you will lie down. And though they afflict you, you will not be afraid. That's our goal. That's His will. He wants that for us. Do we want that? Thanks for watching.